If you like scrapbooking, journaling, or memory keeping, you might be interested in a project like this one. It's called a mood or mental health blanket, and it's very similar to a temperature blanket, but instead of recording the weather every day, you're going to be documenting your mood or emotion with a designated color. Now, even if you're not really interested in documenting your mood, I would still recommend that you watch the video because this makes a great stash buster project. To get started, first you need to decide what kind of blanket you want to work on. Do you want your blanket to be worked up in rows or in squares? I've even seen crocheters join flower motifs together and it looks really pretty. The key here is to pick a version that you feel is easiest for you to do each day. If you like the idea of rows, choose a stitch that doesn't have a lot of height to it, something like a single crochet or a half double crochet. So something simple like a moss stitch or a granny stripe would be ideal. I would recommend that you search temperature blankets because you can get a really good idea on standard sizes for this and different techniques. If you decide to go with squares, aim for a square that works up to about 2 inches. A classic granny or solid granny square works perfectly for this because you can control the size by the amount of rounds that you use. You're only going to need about 2 to 3 rounds depending on the hook and yarn that you use. For me personally, I've decided to make mine using 2 rounds of a solid granny square using a 4mm hook. In my opinion, this is the more sustainable option. 1 square each day is only going to take me less than 15 minutes to do. And then doing a join as you go technique at the same time is going to save me joining the squares together at the very end. And then once you've got a pretty clear idea of what kind of style blanket you're going to make, now you want to focus on your yarn. Because we're dealing with 365 days, this is going to work up into a big blanket, so yarn choice is important. So I would recommend a weight 3 or 4 yarn for this project. And just for gauge, that means you'll be wanting to use a 4 to 5mm hook. Another thing to keep in mind when you're choosing out your yarn is to make sure that you choose one that you have easy access to. For example, you don't want to use a yarn that could potentially be discontinued during that year. Choose a yarn that is usually in stock or very easy to order online. I'm going to be using a city tweed yarn that I ordered a few years ago and then never used. I have a lot of it, so this will be perfect. And finally, it's time to designate your colors with your color coding. You can make this as simple or as detailed as you like. If you have a lot of colors that you want to work with, then you can do an array of emotions. Or if you want to have a more muted palette, then you can go with your basic ones. If you feel too limited with having specific emotions, then I would recommend that you do a scale instead, based on however many you want to use. For example, you can do a scale from 1 to 10, and then you can rate your day depending on how it went. If you want to use this project as a stash buster, then I would recommend that you still choose a color based on mood, but more in a color mood. I'm feeling red today, or I'm feeling blue today. That way you can still have fun, but it doesn't have to be so specific. And that's all there really is to it. The key here is to keep it efficient, simple, and fun, so that you'll want to keep doing it for the entire year. And that's another beauty of this. If you come across this video and it's not exactly on January 1st, you can still participate. You can start where you are and make a smaller blanket, or you can just start documenting your days in a notebook and then make those rows or squares when you have time. If you want to do the squares like I am, I've made a tutorial sharing how to make a solid granny square and how to do the join as you go technique. I'll go ahead and link it here for you. I'm going to be making my blanket approximately 48 to 60 inches long. If I've done my math right, I think I'll be off by about 10 squares. I'll either omit those 10 days or use those days to make a border. I haven't quite figured that out yet, but all of the information will be in the description box below the video if you're interested. Be sure to let me know in the comments if you're going to be working on this project. I would love to hear from you. I hope you'll be joining me. And I'll definitely do another video at the end of the year when I start working on the border.